welcome to Mentally Fit, a brand new podcast which is going to be covering a whole range of issues on the subject of mentally fit and mental illness and LGBTQ issues as well. And I'm delighted to welcome our host of the show, who has been on a program here before at WiSP Sports, but now she's going to take over the reins. Kendra, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You have so much experience. You do a lot of public speaking, of course, these days, and a range of topics that you can cover. Just give us a sense of all the kind of issues that you would like to cover with this podcast in the future.
Oh my, I think that the possibilities are endless. I find myself in this space working in mental health and working a lot with people closely who have mental illness or other disordered behaviors in that kind of area. And I feel like I learn something every day. And every day I learn something, I want to share it, because I think the thing that I struggled with the most post-diagnosis and even still is access to resources that are truly beneficial. And I feel like that's just kind of this evolving piece that comes with education and experience, and obviously the decrease of stigma in and around talking about mental illness and life with mental illness. And as you mentioned, I mean, I'm an advocate for an organization called You Can Play that deals a lot with equality and inclusion in sport, dealing specifically with LGBTQ issues, and something that I think that I very organically started speaking about only very recently. I mean, living as a lesbian has been my reality for many years, but I don't know that I understood the importance of sharing that piece of my story because it didn't feel relevant to me. And I've very much been able to learn the impact that has on others. And again, just that piece around silence, and being able to feel comfortable being yourself and live your truth and not live with the burden of feeling as though you're hiding. And I guess the two have kind of run parallel for me for some time now. So I guess all of the issues in and around there, accessibility to resources, living with coping tools, inclusion, equality. I imagine information is just going to continuously change in terms of what I want to offer and what I hope to be a part of.
Well, this is really exciting for us, of course, Kendra, because we cover all issues for women in sport, and so many of these topics apply to many of our audience members, and it is something that is an important conversation no matter where people are and what their situation may be at whatever stage. So we're delighted that you're going to be hosting this podcast here at WiSP Sports, and I believe you're going to get started with this episode dealing with facing the fear and the mood changes and that sort of anxiety that all happens as you're approaching a holiday season. So many people experience that. So I'm going to hand over to you to share with your experiences and, of course, advice on how people can deal with that. So, again, welcome to WiSP and good luck with the podcast.
Well, thank you kindly. And I guess as I was kind of sitting here thinking about what it was that we should be starting with today, it just feels like such a natural start. I don't know. I mean, I'm in Canada, so I know that we deal with a weather change, a seasonal change quite rapidly around this time of year, and I always find myself in a position where that really affects my mood, and it really affects kind of how much I have to really focus on taking care of myself. And I feel like that just kind of compounds and comes right into the Christmas season or the holiday season, whatever it may be for you. And I think I always remember one of these moments, I guess, and I always kind of draw strength from the things that I've been able to overcome. And I think back to what the holiday season looked like for me when I was newly diagnosed and in an absolute place of crisis. And I always try to relate back to these moments because I hope that the conversations that I'm having are finding those people who are really struggling with what next and struggling with, I guess, not really knowing where to turn or what could be the solution. And I remember back when, I guess I was probably in my early 20s, I was it was Christmas time, and I was living in Toronto. My family lives about 2.5, 3 hours outside of Toronto. And at that time, with my anxiety, with my depression, my agoraphobia, I was in a place where the thought of traveling from Toronto to Kincardine just to simply get home for the holidays was far too much for me. It was this daunting, terrifying kind of expectation. I'm going home for Christmas. Of course I am. But at that same moment, we're talking about a moment in my life when I used to measure where I could go just based on the geography of the closest hospital, of where I could get help if I was in crisis. And I remember that year for Christmas, my father, we had actually come up with this huge plan and this huge scheme, and he had pulled the seats out of the back of his van and hopped in his van and drove down to Toronto, and he'd put a mattress in the back and literally just made a bed in the back of his van for me. And I was in a place where it was so extreme for me to be able to leave my apartment, and that anxiety and that fear around kind of stepping out of my comfort zone during a time when you're sitting back watching everybody else seem so happy and so festive. And it was this kind of polarizing feeling of being so much further isolated because you couldn't be a part of that, yet you were right in the middle of it. And I got in my dad's van and I took a gravel just to knock myself out. And that was the only way I managed to get home for the holidays. And it was such a drastic plan, but that was the only way I could get there. And I guess every time this time of year comes around for me, I start to consider all of the people who maybe don't have those supports or those safeties or have any understanding of why it is that they're feeling the way they do. And I think it's just a moment when we really have to kind of take check of what's going on and how things are making us feel, and make sure that we surround ourselves with people and people who have some understanding, and if not understanding, at least knowledge of what it is that we're living with, and that, you know, potential for depression, and that potential for anxiety, and that potential for feeling isolated, alone. And the fact that it is harder. It's harder because you want so badly what you're seeing everybody else has. Yet the struggle to achieve that it feels like it isolates you even further. And I think it's so important that we reach out and we make sure that we kind of have that support network, those people who are going to kind of go through that journey of the holidays with us, make sure that they check in on us, or that it's okay that we reach out to them if we're feeling alone or feeling scared or overwhelmed by everything that's happening. And more importantly, and I know I'm guilty of this, is I talk about all of the things that keep me in recovery, all of the, I guess, tools that I have to use. And it's extensive for me. For me, I have to make sure I'm eating healthy. I have to make sure I'm getting enough sleep. I have to make sure that I stay physically active, that I engage in mindfulness, whether it be through meditation or yoga. I have to make sure I take my medication. I have to make sure that if I'm overwhelmed by these things, or if I'm in a position where I feel as though I'm maybe just, you know, a little out of sorts, that I'm reaching out and engaging in talk therapy and making sure that I'm allowing others to put things into perspective for me when maybe that irrationality kind of kicks in. And all of these things are just so difficult when the holidays come. I mean, it's not conducive. It's not normal. You go home for the holidays and there's just treats galore and junk food everywhere, and the notion is one of just festivity and staying up late and visiting and catching up. And for a lot of us, I mean, our lives are so busy during the year that a lot of us use the holidays as that one time to kind of catch up and really, just embrace family and friends. And unfortunately, for those who maybe don't have those people in their lives too, it's all this kind of perfect storm of, we forget to take care of ourselves. We forget to do the little things. We forget that it's important that, yeah, we want to be caught up in all this, or maybe we want to avoid all this. And in doing so, we stop doing the little things. And I guess my messaging around this is, I've had some of my worst moments of relapse, I guess, around the holiday season. One, just kind of battling that overwhelming feeling like I'm just not part of the festivity because I feel like I'm looking from the outside in. And on the flip side, just getting complacent, getting lazy, thinking that I can just take a holiday from taking care of myself. And with mental illness and mental health, I guess it's just not the way it is. I mean, it's not for me. That week or that 2-week period, if I'm complacent, I pay for it for the next week or two later. And fortunately for me, I'm in a place where I'm far enough along in my recovery that I can recover from that. And I guess my fear and my point of having this conversation and why I feel it's so important is there's a lot of people who aren't in a place of recovery, who are going into this and dreading the holiday season from a place of crisis. And I think it's such an important time that we build ourselves up and we build those people up around us. And if you know people who are living with these struggles, that we reach out to them and really understand and make sure that we get the possibility that even though it seems like such a happy time of year, it's very stressful for a lot of people and it's very hard on a lot of people. And I just think it's so important that we spread that conversation around the importance of self-care and of peer support, of family support, of friend support. And if you don't have those things naturally, putting yourself in a position ahead of time where you're reaching out to whatever network of support it is you can find, whether it's a community agency in your area, a hospital if need be, and making sure that we really have kind of things in place in case we find ourselves in crisis. And I guess that's a lot of my messaging is always making sure that we plan for the possibilities and we understand that things can change and we can't always predict those things. So I know for me, I mean, coming into the holidays, I always have that initial onset of, okay, you're going to have to work a little harder here, which sometimes feels unfair because it's the time when I'm supposed to be able to vacate. I'm supposed to be able to come down and relax and be with my friends and be with my family. And I think that the important part is as long as I plan for it, I can still have that. As long as I plan for those things that could pop up, as long as I plan for the fact that probably not a good idea to just live on baked goods for the next, 2 weeks when that holiday season gets here, and trying to space things out ahead of time, doing your shopping or taking care of whatever engagements or expectations you have of yourself or others have of you, and really just making sure that they fit safely into your routine. And I think that that's what the holidays have taught me and why I feel it's so important for these conversations to take place, because at this time of year as well, the other part that scares me the most is that younger age group that's got a built-in social network when they're at school. But unfortunately, when they leave school, they go home for the holidays, a lot of those kids and a lot of those adolescents don't necessarily have the same access or the same daily interactions that they're having that may be their support. And I think that especially in that age group, teachers, counselors, administrative staff, parents really need to make sure that they're aware of that and make sure that we're providing open conversation and the safety of kind of opening that dialect with our kids and our youth to make sure that they're not feeling overwhelmed and facing a bad time, I guess, at this time of year. And so I guess that's what I really want to share is I'm a very firm believer that no part of mental illness is ever made easier doing it alone. I don't feel as though isolation is ever the answer. And we need to be really strategic and looking out for one another coming into times of year or events or any, I guess, moment in life that we know could be deemed stressful or carry with it a little bit more for these individuals, and really just make sure that we reach out and take care of one another. And I guess that's a great reminder for me too. I mean, I take this time of year to reach out and make sure that I have all of my people kind of in my life, and when I'm maybe not looking out for my best interest, I know somebody else is, and having that accountability really helps me out. I guess to wrap that up, I mean, I really look forward to these conversations, and I look forward to being able to share my experiences and hopefully get to a place where, you know, we can be a little bit more interactive. And if there's ever anything that people are looking for information on or looking for my experiences on, I mean, you can always reach out to me. I'm available on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Kendra_Fisher30 or on Instagram at KFisher30. I also have a Facebook page you can find just by typing in my name. And I guess to wind things up today and before my next conversation, obviously, if you're looking for more conversation from the world of women's sports, please reach out, visit wispsports.com, and follow WiSP Sport on social media as well. This is a very new relationship for me and one I'm looking forward to for a long time to come. So thank you so much for having me here today, and looking forward to talking again in the future.